Burundi announces a 6-month broadcast ban on the Voice of America and the BBC ahead of a constitutional referendum. As South Sudan's youth continue to flee civil war, experts warn of a ticking time bomb. And could the Me Too movement be coming to Uganda's largest university? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Burundi says it will impose a 6-month broadcast ban on the Voice of America and the BBC. The ban is expected to take effect on Monday. The announcement by Burundi's National Communications Council comes 2 weeks before the country votes on proposed amendments to the constitution, including changes to presidential term limits. VOA and the BBC are accused of breaching laws regulating the media and engaging in unethical conduct. If the government follows through on the ban, VOA's 2 FM transmitters in Burundi will likely be shut down. However, VOA will still be available in Kirundi and Kinyarwanda via shortwave, the internet, and on FM transmitters located in neighboring countries. Burundi is set to hold a constitutional referendum on May 17th that could potentially see President Pierre Nkurunziza stay in office until 2034. Currently, the constitution allows the president to be elected twice for a total of 10 years in power. President Nkurunziza's supporters say a yes vote would reset the clock and allow him to run for an additional 2 7-year terms. Nkurunziza has been in power since 2005. The United States strongly criticized him for seeking a 3rd term in 2015. More recently, it denounced alleged violence and intimidation against opponents of the referendum. The Voice of America is concerned about the government of Burundi's threat to suspend its broadcast operation for 6 months, effective May 7th. The following is an official statement from the director of the Voice of America, Amanda Bennett. In court, we are dismayed by the actions taken today by the Burundi National Communications Council to ban VOA from broadcasting its news and information programs. Our audience members count on VOA to provide factual, unbiased and objective coverage of current events, so this ban deprives the citizens of Burundi of a trusted news source during a critical time in that country. This is even more distressing coming only 1 day after World Press Freedom Day, a day calling for governments to remove, not impose, restrictions on the media. End of statement. Now, for more about the proposed broadcast ban on the Voice of America, I'm joined in studio by Frederick Nkundikije. He is from VOA's Kirundi, Kenya, Rwanda service. Frederick, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Now, from what you are hearing, what exactly do we know that Burundi claims Voice of America did in its coverage of the country to warrant this kind of action?
Yes, Vincent, I must say that we were taken aback to hear that decision, because so far as Central Africa Service is concerned, we've been, carrying our programs in a very balanced way, inviting everybody, including the opposition and the government. And we have never received any complaint before, and that was kind of a shock. And,
that is critical, that there hasn't been any complaint before regarding our coverage of the country. So this just came out of nowhere.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, because, just to give you an example, we in Central Africa Service have managed to invite people who have even refused to sit together in those international mediated talks.
Yeah.
We have had, like the first vice president, sit down with Buyoya in a long show, like live 1-hour show, call in. They have many times participated.
Yeah. So we kind of make sure we have both sides of the story in Burundi, balance the story, right?
Yes, indeed.
And get all the facts right.
Yeah.
And now, in terms of the upcoming referendum, is there a particular sensitivity in Burundi right now as regards the coverage of that, and perhaps their concerns about how VOA is going about it?
Yeah, but again, as I said, for Central Africa Service, the campaign for the referendum started 2 days ago. We had dispatched our reporters across the country, and each party at least those main political parties were covered. We had our stringers there, and we had everybody, the opposition and the government.
Yes. Back in the country, how free is the press? To what extent the local media able to kind of tell the story in as balanced way as possible?
As you know, there are some radios that have been closed since 2015 when the political crisis erupted. But as far as we are concerned, we have stringers all over the country, and they are free to report the news. And we have never received any complaint from the government saying that this particular reporter has, filed a report which is unbalanced. We have never received such complaints.
Well, we just hope that the government will change its position.
We hope so.
And allow the citizens of Burundi to continue receiving very balanced reporting from the Voice of America. Fred, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today on short notice.
Thank you.
Well, that's Frederic Nkudikije of VOA's Kirundi, Kenya, Rwanda service. Well, now, moving to South Sudan, where a 5-year-long civil war has forced many of its citizens, including unaccompanied children, to flee to neighboring Uganda. With more than half of these young refugees under the age of 18, experts warn the situation is a ticking time bomb and that there is an entire generation at risk of being lost. VOA's Maria Diallo reports.
A moment of relief at a Ugandan refugee camp for these young girls and boys who were forced to flee their native South Sudan amid ongoing violence. For some, the memories all too vivid.
My father was shot in the war, and then my mother. I don't know where she went. We waited for her until evening. She did not come.
After seeing his father's body on the street, the 16-year-old took his younger brother and fled.
The driver did not know even. We climbed into a car when the driver did not even know. After we reached the border of Sudan and Uganda, the driver asked us, "Who told you to climb on the car?" We told him that we were sorry.
Aid workers say they lack resources to place all the children in foster families. This young mother of 2 now takes care of 8, and she says the children are traumatized.
These unaccompanied minors,
I feel pity for these unaccompanied minors because it also happened to me in the first war, when my dad died. They really need help because they don't know anything about the war, so they feel they are just suffering without knowing the reason.
Without parents, the children are vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. They are in desperate need of stability and education, warns Basil Droty from the Danish Refugee Council.
If the situation is left the way it is up to now, despite registering some improvements, we can actually lose that generation. Now the call is, we have different partners for different services. What is the best for these children?
Education, he says, might be a way to empower them and help them heal. According to the United Nations, about 60% of the over 2 million South Sudanese refugees are under 18 years old, the 3rd largest mass exodus in the world after Syria and Afghanistan. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Well, there are questions tonight about Mozambique's political future following the death of rebel leader Afonso Dhlakama. He died unexpectedly on Thursday at the age of 65. President Felipe Nyusi says the country's peace process must not collapse in the wake of Dhlakama's death. He hailed the rebel leader as a citizen who has always worked for Mozambique and said he was distraught by the news of Dhlakama's death. For 39 years, Dhlakama led Renamo, the rebel group which fought a 16-year civil war against the ruling Frelimo party until 1992. Renamo then emerged as an opposition party but retained its armed fighters. Since 2013, Dhlakama has been in hiding out in the remote Gorongosa Mountains after sporadic conflict erupted again in the country. He recently opened talks with the government and took a central role in advancing the country's peace process. Now, for more on the implications of the death of Mozambique's opposition leader, Afonso Dhlakama, I'm joined in studio by Amancio Vilanculos of VOA's Portuguese. Amancio, welcome to Africa 54, and I hope I didn't massacre your name. Yes. Yes. Now, the most critical thing is that by the time Dhlakama died, there was a peace deal that was supposed to have been signed. Is there concern that perhaps his death will have some serious implications as regards this particular peace deal?
Of course, most people, according to the reports that we've been running, most people are concerned about the future of these deals. But some experts in law, particularly that we spoke to, they say this is a deal between the president and the leader of a political party. It's okay that he is dead, but they believe Renamo will be able to continue discussing with the government. But at the same time, even among Frelimo members, there are some who are not totally in agreement with the deal, because Renamo is demanding that a certain winning party should appoint governors for a specific province, which some members of Frelimo party do not necessarily agree, but the president is in favor of this because he wants peace. So some people, they say, maybe Renamo won't have someone strong with the strength of Dhlakama to continue pressing Frelimo to finalize this deal, which is now sitting in the parliament.
So Dhlakama did exactly what so many other African leaders do. He did not groom anybody openly to take over after him. So the vacuum is left. Is there any clear indication who might fill it?
So far, there's no any clear indication. There are two names being normally mentioned. One is Yvonne Suarez, who is chief whip of Renamo party in the parliament. But some people, at the same time, they say she is very young, she is a young lady, and she does not have the legacy of the guerrilla times. Yeah. And there is Manuel Bissopo, who was very close to Alfonso Dhlakama. He's the general secretary of the party. So some people, they say, maybe he could be the one to lead the party. But there was no any clear indication from Renamo leader to who should be his substitute in case something happens. In this case, he died, but there's no any clear indication who will take over. In some other source of news, people say that it's not only the fact that she is young, but there's another issue here about the gender balance in African politics. People don't believe that she can lead, but she has been very vocal even within the parliament. At the same time, Mozambique is a country of 28 million, and half of the population is really above 35 years old. So maybe she will be in a better position because she represents the majority of the people in the country. But there's a challenge that has been left with this vacuum that Dhlakama left.
Well, we'll watch and see what happens after. Now, we thank you very much, Amancio, for joining us today.
Thank you, Vincent. Have a good show.
Appreciate it. Well, Amancio Vilanculos is VOA Portuguese reporter. Now, the Africa 54 team is always thrilled when you reach out to us on social media to let us know what you think about our show and the stories we cover. Now, this week, Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, threatened to cut aid to African nations for their track record of voting against the U.S. at the UN. Her statements drew strong reaction from some of our social media followers. Steve Chakua from Kampala in Uganda wrote, "Our leaders must not compromise our rights and independent African views on the global arena because of aid. Trump must not play with our minds." Another Facebook follower. Helena Davis from the Gambia agrees African nations must stand firm against the whims of Trump. Africa is endowed with natural and human resources that can make us walk tall. But she adds, we lack honest leaders who are willing to give it a go. For how long shall we bow to the West? Helena, we live in an interconnected world. We all need each other in order to survive, do business and grow. And at the same time, we all need to respect each other, right? And it's always very rewarding when we get encouraging messages from you. Onesmus Rualia from Zambia writes, Africa 54, you're doing great work. Continue promoting issues that affect many countries. We love you all. Now, thank you, Onesmus, for your kind remarks, and please keep them coming. Now, reach out to us on Facebook at VOA Africa 54, and don't forget, we stream our show live every day. Follow me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Well, we're going to take a break now. When Africa 54 returns, we take you to Atlanta, Georgia for the 2018 Kenya Diaspora Cultural Festival. Stay with us.
The United States promises to hold China to account for laser tests near a U.S. base in Djibouti that resulted in minor eye injuries for 2 American pilots. China denies the claim. In South Sudan, Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni attend a special party conference in Juba with President Salva Kiir prior to a new round of peace talks. In Ivory Coast, educational centers help children diagnosed with autism by providing specialized care in a country with no public structure to help children with the developmental disorder. In Senegal, Women in Africa holds its first regional summit in Dakar, bringing together over 180 women entrepreneurs from 15 different countries.
Well, Kenyans in the U.S. state of Georgia flocked to Atlanta recently for the Kenya Diaspora Cultural Festival. This year's theme was shunning tribal differences while appreciating cultural authenticity. The annual event is better known as the Atlanta Maju Festival. It showcases the diversity of Kenyan African cultures and has become quite popular among the Kenyan diaspora. Thousands of people gathered for this year's event to enjoy 3 days of traditional Kenyan music, artifacts and foods. Now, VOA Swahili reporter BMJ Murithi attended the event and now joins me in studio to tell us more about that event. Welcome to Africa 54, BMJ.
Thank you, Vincent.
You had a good time down there.
Yes, it sure was a moment to remember because, as you know, let me give you a little perspective here. Atlanta is one of the a few of the U.S. cities where there is a big concentration of Kenyans in the diaspora. And so when something like this happens, it pulls a lot of people, as you have
and you know, this comes just a few months after the election-related squabbles in Kenya and all things that actually spilled over even into the diaspora, where people ethnicity was being weaponized for political purposes. How did things play out at this particular festival?
Now, it's good that you mentioned that because you have seen the kind of vitriol that came out of the Kenyans in the diaspora, especially through the social media during that long period of election. And this did play out because even the government the Kenyan government sent its special ambassador for culture, Amy Kosgei. This is one of the artists very popular around the world, and she was there to say that it is good that people meet in such gatherings so that they can iron out these differences that they may have.
Now, we have some beautiful video that we are seeing right at the same time as we speak. Tell us what exactly happened there.
So here you are watching the dancers as they perform their thing, and it was not just dances. There were, as you mentioned, the artifacts, the food, the Kenyan food.
Because we have quite a variety of foods across the country.
And someone would argue that it was just an opportunity for Kenyans to go eat and make merry, but there is an underlying factor here, which is really trying to bring the people together and not forgetting the handshake that happened in Kenya. So this has been translated.
So the idea, if you pick it up from the theme, is that we do not shun our ethnic differences. We do not necessarily, run away from the diversity we have, but we can still be united within the diversity, right?
Exactly. Shunning tribalism while at the same time celebrating what is authentically Kenyan, that is culturally speaking. And also, when I was speaking to some of these people who attended, they felt like this was their place. It was like they had gone to Kenya for 3 days and come back. And, they show their children the things that they would not necessarily ordinarily show them because, of course, of not being able to travel for one reason or another. And it was really a spectacle.
It is really heartwarming to see that you can bring Kenya to the United States.
Yes.
Thank you for being there for us and sharing all this upon your coming back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent.
That's BMJ Murithi, VOA Swahili reporter. Now, could the Me Too movement be coming to Uganda's largest university? The school recently suspended a staff member accused of demanding sexual favors from a female student. Meanwhile, trial preparations are underway for a landmark civil suit filed by a former student who says the university violated her rights and failed to protect her from sexual harassment. Alima Athumani reports for us from Kampala.
Makerere University counts 40,000 students and is considered one of the top schools in East Africa. Yet, Makerere is now under fire, accused of not doing enough to stop the alleged sexual harassment of female students. Chisule Rehma said she never reported her experience. She went to a professor to dispute a grade.
Then the lecturer made a statement like, have you had sex before? So I was wondering, how is this coming up? Like, I'm asking for marks and you're asking me whether... So when I gave him a very weird face, I'm like, what are you talking about? He tried to like, no, okay, no, that's not the thing. So if you've had sex before, you're supposed to, the marks, like, it wasn't making sense. I had to just like, from that day, I don't even go to his office.
The issue has long been whispered about at Makerere, but 2 cases have gone public this year.
It's someone with authority who abuses it and, seeks for sexual favors from vulnerable students in return to, some missing marks, some academic-related favor.
Law professor Sylvia Tamale leads a committee set up in 2017 to handle cases of sexual harassment. More than a decade ago, administrators rolled out a short-lived and much criticized dress code for female students.
I was challenging that proposal. I told him, supposing I find your lips extremely sexy and, kissable, are you going to cover them? In other words, sexualizing women's bodies is not a women's problem. Blaming the victim is extremely wrong. It is missing the point.
Lawyer Isaac Semakade is representing a female student who sued the university this February. She was dismissed in 2013 after she reported sexual harassment. The court proceedings remain under seal.
The impact of the global Me Too movement cannot be understated here. The demographics in Uganda are such that 80% of Ugandans are below the age of 35. So university students are the best, they're the cream of our youth, they're the pride of our nation. They are, by all accounts, and they should be the most informed and exposed. So they are aware of the extraordinary courage other women have had to master to speak out against this historical prejudice and injustice that they've suffered in their workplace, in schools, and in various institutions of public and private life.
Students say reporting abuse is still not easy.
Here comes the problem whereby even the dean of students is maybe a personal friend to the very lecturer. So in that scenario, what do you do? What do you do? We get stuck at the end of it and they tell you, what? The situation is being investigated. And you wait in vain.
There are signs of change. The university's sexual harassment policy dates back to 2006. But the school is now creating mandatory online training to raise awareness. Meanwhile, administrators quickly suspended a registrar official in April after a student posted a photo on Facebook of his alleged inappropriate behavior. That investigation is ongoing. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Kampala.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. How do you get your president's attention? Well, you write him a song. Congolese musician Roger Roger's letter to the president after the break. Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Now, students from across Libya showcased their skills at a national robotics competition that supports local talent in artificial intelligence. The event was organized by Hexa Connection, an NGO founded in 2013. The organization specializes in supporting innovation and technology in Libya. Teams were judged on how the robots were designed and how efficiently they carried out their tasks. Organizers hope the competition would provide a platform to build new cadres of robot developers who are capable of participating in regional competitions. Well, and we want to leave you now with Ibambi Okumbi Rogatian, who is best known as Roga. Roga is from the Democratic Republic of Congo, featuring Chairman Kayo. And it's a message to the president of that country to shun all those that are misleading him. Here is Letter to the President. And with that, have a great weekend.
Bafishi na bino ya makambo ya lokuta na kombo ya chevalier tokofunda bino lelo epai ya papa hawa na koyemba natangi kombwa moto te bino oyo bokoyoka moto na moto akwete na ndenge na ye tu me connais, à ton paye bino. Okobanda ba ministre na ba DG bazo sala mabe. Ba komisi misala bien familial na ethnique. Tribalisme za mabe. Régionalisme pe mabe. Tobosani intérêt ya mboka mbokolo.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Ballet dancers are known for dancing on the tips of their toes.
Tiptoe.
It sounds as if Anna and Jonathan are going to dance for us.
Thanks for going to my friend's art show last night.
Yeah, it was fun.
What did you think of her paintings?
They were, let's see, how can I say this? The paintings were